Other than the Jeep Gladiator, the 2021 Toyota Tacoma is the only truck in America to offer a manual transmission. But is it any good? Well, today I'm going to go through the ins and outs of what's available with the manual, what's not available, and also give you my thoughts on its driving dynamics. And believe me, it's a pretty interesting package, so stick around. I've already made a full review of the Toyota Tacoma, so check it out later to answer most of your non-manual related taco questions. Also, friendly reminder, if you like what you see, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell. That way you get high quality content and I get closer to making this a full-time gig. Thanks. Now back to the review. If you've been following up with manual transmissions recently, you've probably figured out that most cars that offer them only offer them in a very select few trims with very select few packages available. So you can only get the manual transmission if you opt for a TRD package. So that includes the TRD Sport, TRD Off-Road, and TRD Pro. What I have here is the TRD Sport, signified by its big non-functional hood scoop. The TRD Pro will also have that. They're all going to be powered by the same 3.5 liter V6. There's no option of a manual transmission with the 4-cylinder anymore. So if you want that, you'll have to buy a used one, but I don't advise that too much because these hold their values so well that it doesn't make that much sense. I guess it depends on who you are. All of the Tacoma models will have 9.4 inches of ground clearance.
Ooh. Except, wow, ew.
I am ashamed that I was that excited by that car.
Well, we both heard it.
So there are downsides to basically starting in the middle of the trim ladder. One, there's pretty much no way that you're gonna walk out with a sticker price of below 35 grand. But a pro to this is that you can get the Tacoma manual transmission with so many features that you'd probably want. Now this specific Tacoma with a manual transmission has a sticker price of over 43 grand. To some of you, that's a gut punch that you could not take, but I will have to say, the features that it comes with,
they're nice.
The TRD Sport is going to be your best bet if you actually do work with your truck. You're gonna have the highest payload capacity of around 1,500 pounds with that V6 and 4-wheel drive. Now, you will not be able to opt for a rear-wheel drive Tacoma if you want the manual transmission. You also will not be able to get the double cab with the 6-foot bed, which for you people that really want to do truck stuff, it's gonna be a bit of a downside, and I'm sorry. You can get the extended cab, which it will have that 6-foot bed, but the rear seats are... Jokes aside, I'm 6'3" and I could fit in the front and back. Not gracefully, but this isn't bad for a mid-size extended cab pickup. Now, some of you might not care at all about this, but if you're spending upwards of $40,000 on a truck, you might want a proximity key, and normally the TRD Sport would have that. However, you can't get that on any trim with the manual transmission. Since Toyota still gives you the availability of a ton of features, this manual transmission model has things like a 360 view camera. It has the optional LED headlights. It has blind spot monitoring. It has adaptive cruise control with forward collision mitigation. The latter of which is standard on all Tacomas. Real quick, I'd like to thank Andy and Royal South Toyota for giving me access to the Tacomas needed to make this video. Royal South is Bloomington's Toyota dealership. If you're looking for a new Toyota and great service, check them out. Now, let's hop inside the stick shift Taco. The manual transmission Toyota Tacoma does not skimp on features because Toyota chose to actually not punish you for your transmission choice. Firstly, you get tech features standard on here that many trucks don't even offer, like a Qi wireless charging pad. You also get standard dual zone automatic climate control, along with the availability for many, many different options, like what this one has. You can get leather heated seats, and it's a quality leather. You can get blind spot monitoring on here. You can get parking sensors. You can get a 360 view camera. You can get a sunroof. And lastly, I really enjoy the fact that they give you a physical handbrake. It's especially helpful with a manual transmission. The touchscreen that you will have is an 8-inch unit. You will also have 6 speakers as standard equipment. You cannot get the JBL though. Some buyers might be a little disappointed. I do like that JBL system. It definitely has more punch on the low end and is a little bit crisper whenever volume is higher up. You also will not get the proximity key, which means you don't have push button start on any manual transmission Tacoma. If you check out my full review of the 2021 Toyota Tacoma, I talk interior, exterior, and driving dynamics a lot more in depth than I will in this video. So to sum it up, the cabin itself is short, which makes the seats sit close to the floor and gives the cabin an awkward driving position. I've talked to people who have bought manual transmission Tacomas and regular Tacomas, and they say they've gotten used to it. I'm glad that they do have 10-way power adjustable seats that are standard on all of the TRD models that you could get the manual in. So I at least can adjust myself a lot better than I used to in the earlier parts of this generation. So I'm a little bit more comfortable, but these cushions are still pretty short. The steering wheel also doesn't telescope out much, making the ergonomics particularly bad for tall drivers. I do love the perforated look and the large size of this manly steering wheel. Needless to say, I'm happy with the interior of the 3-pedal Toyota Tacoma. When it comes to driving, I have mixed feelings. So I've driven the manual transmission Tacoma on more than a few occasions at this point. All of the other ones I've driven have been used. Whenever you are at a stoplight, if you're quickly you just grab the shifter and try to throw it in first, sometimes you will on accident put it into reverse, giving the person behind you a fucking heart attack along with yourself. This happens because reverse is placed next to first. You're supposed to access it by shoving the shifter over with more muscle, which is what a lot of drivers do when they try to quickly get into first at a stoplight. I didn't do this in here today, but I have done it in the past in 2 other used manual 3rd gens that have been broken in. A better reverse lockout would be nice. This unit definitely feels on the vague side. It also has a more springy feel. The throws are obviously long, but more than acceptable for a truck. It's not hard to shift, and each gate has a slightly notchy engagement to keep it from feeling like a video game. The tranny is noisy though, sometimes clunking into gear and making unpleasant noises at low speed. The clutch is kind of a different story. It does have a clutch start cancel. That's an off-road feature. You can kind of move the vehicle with just the starter motor if you wanted. It's got a good weight to it. It's a little springy, but not too bad. Honestly, it doesn't feel too vague. It's just, it bites kind of quickly. Unfortunately, my manual TRD off-road tester and the TRD Pro do not get a brake hold feature. Someone tried to correct me in my Tacoma review on this, and after research, I was finding stick TRD Sport buyers saying they had it, so alas, commenter, I will take this L. The sort of finicky clutch and tall first gear are enough to humble confident beginners, but after an hour of driving, I tried a 0 to 60 run and matched my time for the auto. That was not a good second shift, and 60. There's no way to really quickly shift this and not feel like you're beating the absolute hell out of it. I think the gearing in here is just a bit ridiculous, again, especially considering that you actually have to wind out the gears in order to get the power out of it. Side note, the automatic does not shift as smooth as a torque converted unit should, and it's also quite reluctant to downshift unless you punch it like you're trying to keep it from having kids. Now, there is a short throw shifter available for the stick in the aftermarket that seems to garner some praise for improving the shifter feel, and I can imagine that it would make quick shifts a little less cumbersome. The TRD off-road that I'm driving rides on Bilstein shocks that soften up the ride considerably compared to the Sport. I have not driven the TRD Pro, but that uses Fox off-road shocks, so I'm assuming that it would also be a little bit softer than the Sport as well. When equipped with the manual, the TRD off-road soft suspension makes bad shifts very dramatic in the cabin. This suspension also results in a lot of brake dive, which I should mention, all Tacos have drum brakes in the rear. I think the truck stops fine, and it is nowhere near as touchy as the brakes on this truck when the 3rd gen first came out. like I said, I've driven this for a little bit, and I've gotten used to the way that this transmission behaves. Honestly, I think this is able to daily. It just makes things a bit more stressful than what I'm used to with other manual transmissions. The clutch's relatively quick bite point is probably the most significant downfall to this transmission, along with the tall gearing. If the 278 horsepower 3.5 liter V6 had more low down torque, I think this transmission would feel more appropriate. But with just 265 pound-feet of twist at 4,600 RPM, this powertrain does not feel too truck-like. The manual transmission at least allows you to make better use of the power band than the short shifting auto, and this all comes at the expense of fuel economy. Now, the TRD off-road in specific has a softer suspension that really just makes it end up feeling more springy. Do you want your ride to be more bouncy, or do you want it to be more stiff? You get to choose TRD off-road or TRD Sport. Now this is also going to have a ATRAC system, so it has its own controls over the four-wheel drive system, and it also has a locking rear differential, which is great. And if you get the automatic, you're going to get crawl control as well. If you get the TRD Sport, you will not get those off-road features. But all Tacos do have Toyota's Trick Auto Limited Slip Rear Differential that works really well and is activated by shutting off the traction control. But let's get back to that ride quality. Even though this is more softly sprung, the same issues persist in the TRD off-road, where they're just feeling like there's a disconnect between the front and the rear. And more so even than what I find with full-size trucks. The dated architecture here, because this was a revised frame. It was not a complete ground-up new platform. It makes the truck feel downright clumsy over rough, windy roads. All V6 models I drove did a great job of keeping out the harshest impacts, so the ride is more than tolerable as long as you don't try to hustle it. My in-depth handling thoughts are in the full review. You can enjoy driving this transmission. I've seen a lot of people just complain about it endlessly. And I think if you like manuals and you're just ecstatic to see that they even offer this, I think that type of person isn't going to be too disappointed with this, especially when you compare it to the automatic, which really, I mean, it's not that good. I do think that Toyota just could have done a better job overall. If they made it a little bit shorter first gear, gave it the hill assist where it would just hold the brakes for you. If they did those things, along with making the clutch just a little bit less finicky, this would be a really good truck. So basically, Toyota, do the manual, but change just a lot of things. In all seriousness, thank you, Toyota, for offering this still. I appreciate it. Outside of allowing it to exist in the US, Toyota also nailed the packaging for the most part, as you can still get a wide variety of features with it. Plus, as I discussed in my full review, these are still super reliable. Toyota tended to the initial bugs of the third gen. The V6 in here has been used for 5 years now with little issues. The D4S system that gives the truck direct injection also gives it port injection, allowing for the truck to clean its intake valves, ensuring that the Taco is going to run better for longer without additional maintenance when compared to direct injection only engines, like what's in the Honda Ridgeline and the Ford Ranger, and 2.3 liter Bronco for that matter. The Tacoma is a handsome truck with immense configurability, a modern, good-looking interior, ridiculous resale, and top-of-the-class reliability. Pair that up with a 6-speed manual and you have an engaging truck meant for the long haul. You just have to be okay with the sloppy handling, subpar fuel economy, and awkward seating position. Now I'm going to project my own thoughts here, but I personally think that if you're looking for a stick shift Tacoma in the US, you're probably also interested in the few other 4x4 manual SUVs and trucks here. Namely the Subaru Crosstrek, Jeep Wrangler, Gladiator, and the new Ford Bronco. The herd is thin. Your options are quite different, and if you've been trying to buy one, you've probably noticed that it's hard because demand for 3-pedal 4x4 is often higher than what brands are willing to allocate to dealers, at least for Subaru and Toyota. I talked to a manager at Royal South Toyota in Bloomington, and he acknowledged that deficit. He said that Toyota doesn't want to build as many stick Tacomas because they drag down the EPA numbers for the brand. Just like the Crosstrek, even though the stick Tacomas sell, dealers can't get many. In other words, if you want one, try to buy it soon. Higher and higher standards will eventually weed out any weak links in terms of efficiency. Maybe this means that we have until the next gen Tacoma, or maybe they will hold on to the stick and keep the numbers small. I don't know. But if I'm paying attention to the current trend, I'm not super optimistic. That said, the 3-pedal Tacoma is a worthy contender for your money. It's the truck for the car enthusiast who wants a daily with some utility. The powertrain might need some refinement, but it's durable with plenty of modern features and good looks. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like and maybe subscribe. I'll see you in the next one. Has a sticker price of over 43 grand. To some of you, your balls might be shriveling back up into your stomach right now. They're definitely not going to go with that line.